And of course, this started with what sociologists called the Great Awakening, which began in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, to where white liberals became more radical in their views on race than Black and Hispanic Americans. They really drove the moral panic around race that engulfed this country, which really peaked in 2020. And thank God, in no small part, thanks to Donald Trump, is on the wane. And I'll just give you one example of this great awakening. In 2018, a Yale study found that there was a difference between how white liberals and white conservatives talk to Blacks and Hispanics. And the difference is this: white liberals, when they talk to Blacks and Hispanics, they dumb down their vocabulary. They use smaller words than when they talk to other whites. And white conservatives don't do that. And I remember the first time I saw that study, and I thought to myself, and we liberals call conservatives racist? The absolute audacity, because of course the entire leftist culture is suffused with the same kind of racist paternalism that Yale study found.
That it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country. And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so that's what I think.
Museums.
What's going on, guys? It's Talks We Can here today, and I don't understand what's so hard for Democrats to understand the point that Donald Trump and many conservatives are pushing is the fact that our history, when we learn about history in school, I was part of the school system, they always try to teach us the evils, the wrongs of American histories, the struggles, the conflicts, which is good, but what's the overarching narrative you're trying to convey to the American people? And I think Democrats don't realize how much they have politicized everything about the American histrionics and how it's used as a weapon to frame America as this great evil place. Culture matters, history matters, museums matters. There's a reason immigrants don't assimilate and why young kids hate their own country. They're taught to disrespect this country. And this is the left. The left has been this is something known. Like if you read socialist books, like one of the books I recommend on this channel, The Naked Socialist, it talks about how socialists, their plan was to invade the education system of a country and teach their youth to hate this country so they'll be more open to cause a revolution, aka change the system into what? Socialism. And this is a common tactic by leftists. And this is why I say leftists care more about perception than they care about reality. They want to control people's perception because they can control. It's easier to control people through their perception. Americans have so much to be proud of. This is the greatest republic on the earth. The Smithsonian, the national museum system of our capital city, should also reflect our nation's greatness. And this is something that I don't see as controversial. Slavery was a footnote in American history. Yes, I said it. I know black people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but slavery was a footnote in American history. America was the first nation to go against the empire, create this. We're the youngest nation in the world compared to all the other nations. Nations have been around for thousands of years. We're going to turn 250 years old next year. And we're the top country in the world in 250 years. That's unheard of. But we don't respect that. Instead, we got all these woke activists trying to inject liberal ideology into our history and try to color our lens to see our country a certain way. And the left cannot deny that this is some type of narrative control that they're trying to frame on the youth. Because what's a famous socialist once said, he who controls the children controls the future. And you wonder why a lot of the teaching unions, the teaching profession is overran by liberals, because liberals instinctually probably understands that, hey, if we want to dominate the future of the country, we must first influence the children. And history is one of the ways that the Democrats and leftists do it. But without further ado, I want to play another segment of that same discussion, and it will follow up with a more broader discussion as we usually do. Let's take a look.
Museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country, and therefore, you know, these horrible, horrific moments in our history. The original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has, you know, we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional. And in museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be, you know, from Nazi Germany to eradicating slavery here in the United States, you have to learn the lessons of the past. And to deny it is to defend it.
I don't think he's denying it. And Bachi may want to comment on this as well. But I think what he wants to ask is a simple question. As we present our history, are we spending most of our time focused on something terrible? Are we going to spend more time as we enter our 250th anniversary focused on what this country has done to improve the lives of every single person who lives here? We are the light of the world for a reason, because we're an improving commodity.
I ask when I hear
I don't understand why the Democrats don't seem to understand this, or why leftists don't seem to understand this, is that you're trying to frame essentially history. You're trying to create a narrative over history, right? And that's what the point of this is why the Smithsonian thing matters so much to the left, and why they're so outraged about Trump gutting out all this woke and left-wing lens on history, is because you're trying to frame history in a certain light to get people to have a certain sentiment about America. And this is the number one problem that conservatives have with 1619s of the world, right? Where they try to push this revisionist false history with no basis in reality. Right? Oh, America was founded on slavery. No, America was founded on the Constitution. And in the Constitution, there's not one literature speaking about slavery, right? But they want you to frame it in a negative way, because all they want you to do is perceive America as a bad place, right? And it's the same thing I talk about with marriage. If all you talk about is how bad your husband or wife is, everyone's going to be asking you, why are you still in the marriage? Why are you still in this country if it's so bad? Because you don't want to acknowledge all the things that your spouse has done to improve themselves, improve their narrative. You don't give them no credit for anything they do. And then you expect them to be happy with you? And this is what I'm talking about with liberals. Liberals are that spouse that all they do is complain and nag and nitpick, and nothing's ever not good enough for them. That's how the liberal comes across when it comes to the American history debate. And I believe it's because of white liberals, white progressives specifically, and their obsession with race is what's really hurting them, and why they keep pushing this revisionist history, pretending like they're giving us the truth about American history. No, you're not giving us the truth about American history. You're simply trying to give us a reframe. And conservatives are entitled to their right to reframe history in a more positive direction. And I believe this is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people don't assimilate to our culture, because they're like, oh, even your citizens said this country is bad. Why should I assimilate to this country? But you're here taking advantage of our resources, though. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. You don't want to respect our culture, our way of life, but you're here in our country. But you ain't staying in your country. Make that make sense. But I digress. Let's get into the discussion.
Starting around 2011, 2012, sociologists started to notice a shift in white liberal opinion polling, to where white progressives became more extreme in their views on race than Black and Hispanic Americans. And they called this, the sociologists called it the Great Awakening. And when they postulated, where did this come from? Why did white progressives suddenly start obsessing over race in a way that was actually far to the left of where Hispanic and Black Americans were on this issue? They found that the media had shifted radically how it talked about these issues. So, for example, in 2010, the words white supremacy were mentioned 75 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times.
But the media is different from museums.
In 2020, the words white supremacy were mentioned 700 times in the Washington Post.
What a dumb argument that is. The media is different from museums. She's pointing to the source of the interest in this stuff, the interest in highlighting history in this over focusing on slavery, right? She's saying that the media put these ideas or these perceptions in people's heads, and these people start demanding this stuff. Start saying, "Hey, this is not accurate history. The museum's portraying America in a too positive light. Slavery happened in this country. Tell me a country where slavery didn't happen at." You can't name one. But for some reason, we hold America responsible for slavery, but you don't mention that in Russia. You don't mention that about Africa. You don't mention about all these other continents. You don't mention slavery nowhere else. But you pretend that America was the only country in the world that participated in slavery. Make that make sense. And that's how it comes across a lot of times when I was taught American history and this overwhelming focus on slavery, when only, less than 2% of white America at the time owned slaves. Make that make sense. And they don't want to teach you the history about Democrats and how they defended slavery. Instead, they teach you a false perception on history about how the party switched. Yeah, okay. That's the Democratic Party. This is what I'm talking about revisionist history. This is an attempt to create a narrative around a country and get buy-in from the American people so that way they can go around and push their agenda. This is all political at the end of the day.
Post in the New York Times and 2,400 times in NPR. The word racism 4,000 times in 2020. The words white and racial privilege from 2013 to 2019 grew by 1,500% in the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the word slavery itself exponentially skyrocketed as a
Essentially liberal brainwashing. This is exactly what it is. Liberal brainwashing. Saying something over and over and over again until people believe it to be true. And that's exactly what happened to the white progressive. But I digress. Let's continue.
percentage of words. I'm offering this only to suggest.
I understand. I'm just wondering what do you think is the problem with talking about slavery, white supremacy, racism, et cetera?
So the point I'm trying to make here is that liberals will say, well, this is a reflection of reality. But of course it isn't. This is a reflection of a newfound obsession that was driven by the media. And that doesn't reflect either the moral evil of these things or the historical accuracy.
I do want to dive into what you mean by that, because you say that you don't think it's a reflection of reality. Based on what?
Well,
based on the idea that those things don't exist, that white supremacy doesn't exist, racism doesn't exist, that we shouldn't be talking about it anymore?
Based on the idea, obviously all these things I think are evil, but there's not more slavery now to the tune of
but I think part of the problem,
1,500% than there was.
is that
And this is one thing that annoys me about black liberals is that they're so, I say it, emotionally tied into this whole needing to obsess about slavery, because it justifies pretty much the black liberals' entire political existence in a way, right? Because if people didn't care about slavery, if people was over slavery, racism, and all that stuff, yes, racism exists across every racial group. Yes, there's some racial prejudice. Yes, there's all the problems. But the point is that black liberals love to use this as a way of tying into what? Systematic racism, right? Using slavery as an alibi for why the black community is at the bottom, right? It's a political alibi for the black liberal to blame all their problems on external problems, on the government. It's what they use to justify reparations. A lot of the black liberals' political power and political weight is reliant on slavery, because this obsession of slavery is what is used primarily to make white people feel guilty about their skin color, even though only 2% of their race actually owns and participated in slavery. But oh no, it's all of white people. Because this is a system. The only thing systematic that's holding black people down is the habits and culture incentivized by black culture. That's the number one thing that's holding black America down. But instead of focusing on that, because that's something that black people can actually do something about, let's focus on history that's already passed and gone, and use that to hold it over white liberals' heads, because I think white liberals are the only political group that have a negative association with their own skin color. White liberals, by the way. Let's hold this white guilt, because essentially, in my estimation, black liberals' political power is built off the backs of white guilt. And the moment white guilt stops being a thing is the day black liberals lose their political position in politics. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Black liberals have a political interest in maintaining this obsession over slavery because it justifies their political power, because their whole political power is built on the foundation of white guilt. And if white people don't have anything to make themselves feel guilty about, they won't be behind DEI and all this other nonsense that they continue to push down America's throat. But tell me I'm lying in the comment section. I would like to hear a counter argument.
Respectfully, that's not a second, Bakari. Part of the problem is that back, not that long ago in the 50s, 60s, even beyond that, when there was actual Jim Crow happening in this country, people were actually treating Black people as second-class citizens. We weren't talking about those things at all.
But in
those words were virtually never mentioned.
Abby, you don't.
So is that better? Was it better then, or was it worse?
Respectfully, in 2008, right? I learned about like American history. They talked about slavery, but they didn't put this spin like the spin that we get now in 2025. They didn't put, oh my God, this is something that needs to be rectified, and there's still a problem today. No, they were just like, hey, this is what happens. Here's the civil rights movement, and look at where America is at, to the point where now we got the first Black president, Barack Hussein Obama. That was the narrative, saying like, look where we came from, look how far we've come, and look where we are now. But instead, what's being taught currently in history by liberals is that look at what the bad things we do, and because of the bad things that America once did, where it never can be a good country. We're continually having these systems that are oppressing Black people now, tying every disparity and saying, look, this is the root cause because America did this. Therefore, it's forever bad. It's forever evil. And then when I ask the question, okay, was slavery practiced around the world? You may have an argument if slavery was only practiced in America, but it wasn't. It was practiced around the world. So why are you sitting here pretending that for some reason America is the only country that should be uniquely held as evil because slavery happened on its soil? Make that make sense. You can't make that make sense. But I digress. My son's going crazy in the background. I'll let you guys off on this video. But let me know your thoughts and perspectives in the comments below. What you guys think about the left's obsession with slavery, and do you think it hurts or helps American culture? I'd like to hear your thoughts and perspectives in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you're so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.